I'm going to introduce our speaker today. Today we have Laura Kelly, and thank you for coming, Laura. Laura serves as the Content Manager Product Development at Dick's Sporting Goods. There, she and her team on brand and content development for over 20 private brands. She is a 2019 MBA graduate of the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University and a current PhD student in Media and Communications at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Before her tenure at Dick's, Laura was the Associate Director of Social Media and Central Marketing and Communications at Carnegie Mellon, where she worked on initiatives around President Obama's Frontiers Conference, the Tony Awards, and South by Southwest. Before CMU, Laura was the Digital Communications Manager at Innovation Works, the region's premier seed fund for technology startups. Companies she worked with went on to receive follow-on funding and be acquired. So thank you, Laura, and I'll let you get started.
Thank you for having me. So to get started, throughout all of this, please unmute yourself if you have a question. I'll try to keep, I have all of you up on my other screen, so I'll try to keep track of that, but by all means, just unmute yourself and ask what you'd like to ask, or if you have anything to add to anything. I think one of the great things about these sessions is that we can all learn from each other. So if there's something that you have tried that has worked really well for you, or something that you are excited about or have ideas about, please share, because I'm sure they could help everyone else. So like Allison said, my name is Laura Kelly, and I am the content manager in product development at Dick's Sporting Goods. And so what that means is I make sure that anything the customer is seeing, the athlete as we call them, is seeing makes sense. That is from the actual packaging to working with marketing to make sure our products are getting placed alongside our national brands like Nike and Under Armour and whatnot, and making sure that our digital teams have everything that they need in order to really show off our products the best that they can. Because I've been at home for almost 8 months now, I decided, why not get a PhD? So this fall I started my Media and Communications PhD at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and one of the classes that I'm taking right now is Qualitative Research, and I think that that's really helped me to better understand who these customers are. And so I'm excited to share with you some of those things that I've learned and hopefully help you better understand who your audience is and move forward with your business. So our agenda for today is, first, I want to just make sure that we're all starting from the same page. So we're going to go over a few terms that I will probably be using throughout the presentation to make sure that everybody understands where we're starting, go over some of the big social players, again, so that we all understand where we are, talking about psychographics and demographics and how they play into the relationship economy, testing out all of the things that we want to try, how to make sure that that qualitative work that we're doing can be counted, and then also talking about some of the low-cost ways that we can prove out whether something is working or not. And I have questions at the end, but again, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask away as we go. So some of the terms that we'll be using throughout, KPI is key performance indicator, and that's what we're going to use to actually measure our success. That's what we're going to be able to count and see if we have made increases where we want to make increases, decreases where we want to make decreases. Lift is a term that we're going to use for increases or improvements. Follower and fan is going to be interchangeable. That's someone who likes or follows a social media page. And then engagement is any action on a social media page, whether that be a like or a comment, a share, whatever it might be. So of course, Facebook is still our big social platform. It has billions of monthly users, billions of daily users. I know today I'm really trying to stay off of Facebook, but it's very active today as well. Within and I'll also send this this presentation around, so don't feel like you need to take screenshots, but feel free to. But you know, you'll all have access to this when we're done. 25 to 34-year-olds are the most common age demographic, so that's really important to know too when you're really thinking about who your audience is. As we go through this, we'll Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, as we go through all of them, really thinking about where your users, where your consumers are, because that's going to make the most sense for you to be there as well. 50% of 18 to 24-year-olds get onto Facebook as soon as they wake up. So again, that's going to help you when determining what makes sense as far as when to post, things like that. So as you can see here, you know, on that last slide, we really talked through what it's like across the board. You know, 50% of 18 to 24-year-olds are getting on to Facebook as soon as they wake up. But that might not necessarily be when your fans are online. So what's really great about Facebook Insights is they tell you all of this information. You know, so you can go on and really see, okay, it looks like my followers are actually on more around 6 o'clock in the evening. So I'm going to make sure that I'm posting when they're going to be seeing it. And that is really going to help with your engagement. So throughout all of this, these are like the big insights across the board. But what's really going to be important for you is to dive into these insights on your own personal pages, or I'm sorry, your business pages, to see what makes sense for your fans and followers. So what's really exciting to me about YouTube is that it's the second largest search engine after Google, and it's owned by Google. So it's so important here to really be thinking about your SEO and your organic content. So 90% of 18 to 44-year-olds who use the internet also watch YouTube. And so, you know, they're using this to make some decisions. I'll use an example from my work at Dick's. One of the things that I do is I will write and produce our product videos for some of our private label brand products. And since YouTube is being used as a search engine, our SEO team has actually taken over running YouTube. So it's no longer our social media team who's running YouTube, it's our SEO team. And so we're using our product videos as a way for product discovery to then push people to our actual website to learn more about the products and then hopefully make that buying decision. So content is really important here, and making sure that there's some sort of call to action. You know, since folks are using it as a search engine, they want to get information, but then what is that next step? What's that call to action so that they're able to make that buying decision and do whatever it is that you want them to do next? Instagram is a great one as well, with 80% of users of Instagram following at least one business. On Instagram, again, across the board, between 10 and 3 p.m. is when the most engagement is happening, you know, when people are on their lunch breaks. Videos are really important here and, you know, can get a lot of engagement. And stories on Instagram are consumed at a higher rate than on Snap and Facebook. So that means, you know, those little 15-second snippets, people are paying attention to them. And what I know at Carnegie Mellon, when we reached 10,000 followers on Instagram, it made such a difference for us, because that's the level where you can have that swipe up option to go to a website, and it quickly became a top refer for us on stories that we actually linked on our Instagram stories. So getting there was important for us. And again, looking across the board, and this isn't all inclusive, of course, I don't have TikTok on here, but really paying attention to where your audience is, as far as who your consumers are, what types of information they're looking for, and how they want to receive it. So Twitter, of course, is a big one. They're younger, more educated, richer than the general US population. 80% of tweets, though, are coming from 10% of users. So again, there is a bit of a discrepancy between how many of these users are actually engaged. But video ads here are 50% cheaper in cost per engagement, which is something to think about. So engagement and cost per engagement is a way that you can buy advertising across digital. So you can do cost per click, you can do cost per impression, and that will help you also decide what makes sense as far as getting the folks to take that call to action, do that action that you want them to. There's 100% more engagement with hashtags. So thinking about what sort of hashtags make sense for both your business, but also the industry that your business is in. So say that you are a startup that is providing drone surveillance of pipelines, for example. The types of hashtags that you would want to look at and be using are ones that are used in that pipeline industry, also in the drone and tech industries, and also in that surveillance industry. What's really important here too is the videos are getting all of the engagement, 10 times more than other content, and 93% of that is happening on mobile. So again, when you're thinking about what's important to you to be doing as a company, if you decide Twitter is the right way to do it and video is important, making sure that that video is captioned, because if people are sitting at work, when we went to work, when people are sitting at work, they can't necessarily turn the volume up. And that also helps with ADA compliance to make sure that it's captioned so that they can read what's happening in the video. It's important to make sure that it's compatible with mobile, so that, if you want to turn it horizontally, it makes sense, but also it will orient correctly in vertical. So those are just some of the things to be thinking about as you're deciding where it makes sense for your business to be on social. Finally, I think LinkedIn is so important for startups. And one of the reasons why is because long form gets noticed here. And this is where you can really set yourselves up as the expert in what you're doing. I think it's so important for startups to prove why they're the ones to solve the problem that they're trying to solve. And LinkedIn is a really great place to be doing this. One, of course, senior level influencers and Fortune 500 companies are on here. But it's also, like I said, that long form. So you can get the right people to see what's important about you. And when I say long form, I mean, this is where you can be writing almost blog posts, about things happening in your industry, explaining who you are and why you're passionate about this, responding to things in the news. So I think that, this is a really great place to be, posting a story from Business Times or other articles, that make sense, Bloomberg, wherever it is that articles about your industry make sense, and responding to them, giving your opinion about it, to set yourselves up as that opinion leader, as that thought leader, so that as you're going through and it's time to really go after some either investors or partners or customers, there's some bang behind what you have to say. So this, again, is something from Pew Research, just showing the demographics of where folks are online. And I think that this is super helpful to, again, help you decide where it makes sense for you to be spending your time. I know as startups, you're probably, programming and sending press releases. And if you can streamline that as much as possible by figuring out where your audience is, I think it's going to help a lot. So again, this will be in the presentation that we send out. So then, we want to start talking about how we make sure that what we're doing is making sense. This is a UTM parameters, campaign URL builder in Google Analytics. And I think that this is such a great and important tool to be using so that you can test those KPIs to see if where you're spending your time is actually making sense. So what this does is you'll build your UTM parameter and post it on whatever it is. So say you want to see if Facebook is actually driving traffic for you. You can, put a UTM parameter onto whatever link it is, post it on Facebook, and then you can track it to see how many click-throughs you're actually getting from that UTM parameter. In Google Analytics, you can see what's coming from Facebook, which is great, but you don't necessarily know if that's coming from what you posted or what someone else may have posted about you. It's awesome to get click-throughs from your audience and from your fans and followers posting and talking about you, but to decide if it's actually beneficial for you to be there as well, for you to be having those conversations and making that time investment in there, this will really help you figure out, okay, it makes sense for me to be on Twitter because even though I only have 100 followers on Twitter, I got 75 click-throughs from what I posted there. This is a really rich resource for me. And so I would absolutely recommend and say that this is key in figuring out where your marketing efforts on digital make sense. So now I want to talk a little bit about psychographics versus demographics. So in that slide, 2 slides ago, it had all of the demographics about who is where, what, how old they are, what sort of education level they have, if they've, what sort of money they're making, if they're living in urban areas or rural areas. You have all of that information. But what is so interesting to me is how psychographics are starting to play into these buying decisions. So what psychographics are personalities, lifestyles, interests, those qualitative things, that really have people deciding what companies they want to invest in with their buying dollars. So on the right here, it talks a little bit more about where those traits might lie as far as their personalities to help them decide. And again, if you're able to figure out who your audience is and see what commonalities there are in these types of qualities, I think it's really going to help as you expand and make those next steps in your business. And those psychographics really play into the relationship economy. So, since the end of World War II, we've been in this consumer economy where, businesses have been saying, here's the product, and the customer's been saying, great, thank you, and buying it. Now we're really seeing a shift into this relationship economy where people want to do business with companies that they share some of these psychographics with. And so that might be, some environmental responsibilities. That might be some corporate social responsibilities. That might be, like how the work-life balance of their employees and making sure that they are living, a healthy lifestyle. There are all sorts of things that play into this, but they need to have this consistent message. So this really rough diagram here sort of talks about that, you know, if they're on your social media page, or if they're receiving an email from you, or if they're talking to someone who works for your company, or they're on the landing page of your website, they're getting a consistent message about who you are, so that they can trust in who you are, so that they really want to do business with you. I was at a conference about a year and a half ago now that was talking about this, and the presenter told this great story that anytime I talk about the relationship economy, I want to talk about too. He was engaged and had a web page on the knot.com, the wedding website. So, you know, that had all of the information about when they were getting married, you know, who the bridal party was, all of that stuff that goes into it. Well, the engagement ended. And so he went to customer service and said, hey, I need to take this webpage down. We're not getting married. And they said, you know, we're sorry. That's horrible to hear. Of course, we can take this down for you. Fast forward 3 months, and it's the week after what was supposed to be his wedding date. And he gets an email from the Knot congratulating him and encouraging him to set up or to order thank you notes from all of their partners. And so, you know, he didn't get this consistent message. There was no way that the customer service team was talking to the automated email team or whatever it might be to make sure that that email didn't go out. And so that ruined the relationship for him with that company. Like, he no longer felt like they actually were sorry, or that they, you know, had any sort of empathy for his situation, that he was just a customer to him. So the key here is really to figure out how to personalize that experience and then scale it. And the scaling part is so hard, right? Like, how do you actually scale something to thousands and thousands of customers and make it personal? But I think the key is to set up some really good communications within your company, and to be very, very clear on what your company stands for, and not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. I think this company culture part of it is something that gets overlooked a lot. I'm forgetting the name of the company right now, but it was, it's like a luggage company that was really hot lately. I don't know if anybody remembers who they are, but anyway, you know, the luggage was beautiful. It was great, you know, like Go Travel, all of this stuff. And their employees were never getting any time off. You know, they were just working 7 days a week, working, you know, all hours of the day. And it was so inconsistent with the message that they were sending, you know, to go travel, have this work-life balance. And it really hurt them in that relationship economy side of things. There are two things that I don't have on this slide that I want to talk about, though, and that is the informational marketing versus purchase intent marketing. So informational marketing is really where this relationship can be built. That's where you're talking about who you are as a company. That's like when I was saying in the LinkedIn slide about the different ways that you can really boost yourselves as the expert in that, in whatever your business is, in, you know, why you are the person to solve that problem. That's where the informational marketing comes in. It introduces them to the problem, it introduces them to your solution, it introduces them to you, and it builds that relationship. And it's pretty soft, you know what I mean? It's not saying buy, sign up, sign up, sign up. It's just information. It's giving them, you know, things that they're hungry for, that your audience really wants to know. And then when it comes to that purchase intent marketing, that's where you're actually saying, you know, the call to action. Here's what you should do next to sign up, to purchase our product to get connected with us to learn more. So balancing those two, that informational marketing with that purchase intent marketing, is going to help with when you're building that relationship economy too. So then, test it out. I was at another conference, and it was for a company was giving a presentation about a weighted blanket that they had. And what they realized was, they were doing all sorts of crazy things to see, like, will people actually buy this product? And then they realized, well, why don't we just see if people will actually buy this product? And so they set up, like an $18 Squarespace site for a month, sent out some ads on social media to see if people would click through and actually buy it. And they were able to iterate on it. So, like I said, it was a weighted blanket. And so initially they thought, well, we're going to give them 30 days to test this out, to decide if they want a refund or not. And that was going to be their policy. It turned out they only needed 7 days to make those decisions. And so that helped them so much, because they ended up having so much more inventory on hand than they would have if it would have been that full 30 days. And, you don't necessarily need to purchase things or pay for paid advertisement to do this. Like we talked about in those earlier slides about the different social platforms that can be used depending on who your audience is. Test it, say, okay, well, I think 9 o'clock on Wednesday evenings is when my audience is here. Let me post, for 3 Wednesday evenings in a row at 9 o'clock and see if that's true. And if it is, great. I would say still test out other ones, but really measure those things to see what it is. And then it's really important too to turn that qualitative into quantitative. So when we were talking about that informational marketing, that's a great example of more qualitative marketing and research. So what I would suggest for that is, as you're sending out these messages, encouraging people to get to know you, giving them that information about you. That's where you carefully track when you're doing that, and then seeing, okay, are we getting a lift in website traffic? Are we getting a lift in seeing that people are searching for us and coming to our website from search engines? That's where you can measure to see if that is actually working. And again, I think is really important as you're doing so many different jobs as startups. So here's all of the information that goes way deeper into what I was talking about. So if you have the time, by all means. I also will send along. I have like a running reading list that I keep. It's just a Google Doc that I have links to, or links pasted into, that anytime I see something that I'm like, oh, that's interesting, oh, that's going to be a game changer, oh, that's cool, I have that I'm happy to share as well. And that's everything. So here's my information. Again, this will all get sent out. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. If you have any questions right now, I'm happy to take them. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all a little bit better. It does look like there's something in the chat, but let me see if I can. Oh. Let me see here. Oh, great, it's a link. Okay, so if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Do we have any questions? Or Ishan, do you have a question? I see your screen's up. Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Great.
When we are looking at different social media platforms and they keep increasing or gaining popularity based on trends, how do you grow and accommodate all of them, or how do you choose to eliminate some of them?
Yeah, so it's really gonna depend on where your audience is. So I think as you grow as a company too, it's important to grow across those social networks. But as you're starting out, figure out what is important to you. You know, if it's important to you right now to get investors, then go on to LinkedIn. Don't go on to TikTok. You know, if it's important to you right now to um, get media coverage, I would say, you know, Twitter and LinkedIn are great places to pitch to media. So it really is going to depend on what matters to you, because of course these are all going to be popular networks, but it doesn't matter how popular they are if they're not going to serve your purposes.
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
What do you expect the how these platforms will change as according to like the post-COVID situation? As I see a lot of new things that is coming on to LinkedIn as opposed to I guess 1 year before, right? So how are the customer demographics changing? Like how to like anticipate that for my needs, as you just mentioned?
Yeah, so I think um I mean this is just my opinion. I don't know. But I
Yeah, I know
think
it's just a random question. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, sure. Which I love to think about. I just want to make sure that nobody takes it for,
No,
you
don't
know,
worry about that. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah. um, so I think a lot of companies are going to end up having um, at least a hybrid approach to their work, or a 100% work at home after all of this. You know, just anecdotally talking to my friends and talking to different people, you know, their companies are already deciding, okay, you know, people can work from home and be productive. So we're going to, you know, we're going to develop a work from home policy so that people are, you know, working from home 3 days a week or working from home 2 days a week or whatever it might be. And I think I mean, we're seeing it right now. In order to do that, you have to be on your computer all the time, more so than necessarily. I know for me, I was in meetings all the time um, before COVID struck, and now I'm also in meetings, but they're, you know, via Zoom, via Teams, whatever it might be. Um, and so I think that these platforms are going to adapt to that, to adapt to the more digital workplace for even more traditional companies, and so are going to, you know, continue to offer more features that can get people to stay on their platform longer. You know, I think, you know, you're seeing that you know, Facebook has like Facebook Watch that you can all, you know, watch something together, different groups, things like that. So I think that all of these platforms are going to try to find ways to keep you engaged with their platform longer, so that even if you're doing work, their advertisers still have the ability to get in front of you. That's what I would, you know, predict if I were going to make a bet.
Yeah, it makes sense in the terms that everybody's trying to be competitive, you know, and staying alive, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Steve. I was going to say, if nobody else has anything to say, I'm going to say hi to my friend Steve.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Except it's just a still image. But anyway, I was wondering, do you see a difference in the social media platforms between like for-profit and nonprofit organizations, or like any benefit to having a certain one if you are a nonprofit versus a for-profit?
So I would say YouTube would be really beneficial to nonprofits. And one of the reasons is because organic content is really, really important on YouTube. Um, and organic is going to be, I think, nonprofits' bread and butter. That they're not going to be spending the same amount of money as a for-profit would on advertising, and I think that is going to be their silver bullet. I think that that's what's going to help nonprofits, because this organic, real content is almost like a breath of fresh air when there are so many ads across this stuff. So I think YouTube videos are really important for that. I think Instagram stories, you know, where there's so much more engagement on Instagram stories. And I think that you don't have to be as polished on Instagram stories as you might have to on other forms of video. You know, you don't have to have the same amount of editing. So I think that that is a really great source for nonprofits to use to try to break through the noise and not need to spend any of their budget on something like that. Hey, Steve.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Steve and I used to work together, in case anybody wondered. Well, I will say, you know, if there are more questions, of course, please ask them. But I will say, you know, I gave this presentation a year ago to the same group, and then over the summer to, I forget, it was through the Swartz Center, but some sort of startup group, and then also with a entrepreneurship class at CMU, and have kept in touch with the folks who have wanted to and have been working with the companies that are interested in, you know, having more one-on-one time for their individual needs. So I'm happy to do that. You know, over the summer we had some office hours with one of the companies I'm working with now. We, you know, get together probably once a month or so after work via Zoom, of course, to talk through, you know, where they are in their steps, work through their pitch presentations, you know, all sorts of things. So I'm available for any of that if anybody has questions that you don't want to ask in front of the group, or that you don't have yet, or, you know, as you move through starting up your company, that I'm happy to talk.
How much more important do you think this presentation is for you as compared to, as you said, like you also delivered it last year, right? So I guess this is like, do you see the trend going back to like usual meetings and stuff, for like people flocking back to off social media platforms for like reaching out to the customers and doing customer discovery and stuff?
Wait, you're saying, can you ask that again?
Yeah, I was just saying that, do you, I feel that it's more important about this presentation this year. As you said, you also gave it last year, right? Because it's about reaching to customers with digital platforms. So I was just curious that, do you see this trend like going back? Like how important, like are like totally irrelevant the stuff that is not on social platforms to reach out to customers?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that there's always going to be a want for that, you know, traditional marketing. But right now, especially, it is this is the way that people are communicating, you know, right? Like this is how people are getting in front of their customers. This is how people are talking to their friends and their families. So I think, you know, we're definitely on this like digital swing, but I know for myself, even working in this, even, you know, like I said to one of my professors, you know, I'm getting my PhD in media and communications, and I am so sick of media. You know, I just want to like see somebody in person. So I think it's going to come back, I think, as far as people, you know, doing more of those traditional things. But probably not in the next year. And so I think this is really important and will never go away either. I think that, you know, we're seeing definitely a swell right now, but even a year ago, it was so important to be able to connect with your consumers wherever they are. When I was at Carnegie Mellon, one of the things that I would say was, running social media, was that we want to tell the stories that we want to tell to our customers or to our audience in the way they want to be told them and where they want to be told them. So right now, everybody is on digital, or, I guess traditional TV or radio, but digital is where everyone is. But I think it's important, in a year and a half, when there are trade shows again, to show up and have those conversations with people face to face. When there
Probably
are,
earlier.
So I think that you're definitely going to see, that swing back to a more normalized state. I hope so,
Absolutely.
anyway.
Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, I'd like to thank Laura for coming. And if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to end the meeting for all.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
All
And
right.
I'll send Allison everything that I shared today and that additional list. And like I said, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to get together with whoever. Oh, how are sports injuries? Sorry, coping with COVID. So, so I just saw that there was a question in here.
Okay.
We're actually, I don't know about sports as a whole, but Dick's is actually doing pretty well because everybody is sort of figuring out how to stay active at home. So, we're seeing a really big trend in fitness, and it will be very interesting to see if, because people are making those big investments right now, if they continue to after we move past this, if they're going to say, hey, I bought an elliptical, I'm not going to go back to a gym, so I'm going to buy hand weights, or whatever it might be. But that seems that people are, just like everything else, are figuring out how to do what keeps them happy and healthy at home. So it's interesting to see. All right. Well, thank you all very much. It was great to be here. I had hoped when Allison and I first talked, it was like, maybe we'll be able to have it back in the Swartz Center by now, but oh well, hopefully I'll be able to see you in there sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.